With a bit of self-reflection, I have noticed a trend in my recent videos. I don't know if anybody else noticed this, but I have a very frequent use of the word So I decided that I will actually try to keep that lower a tiny bit. I'm sorry if you didn't notice it, and that because of me saying this, you're probably gonna notice this in all of my videos and not be able to pay attention to anything else. At least that's how it kind of goes with me. But this is just a tiny bit of self-reflection. In any case, in this episode, I'll mainly be doing very standard foliage work, since that was really something that had to be done. And of course, a tiny bit of fixing up the station a tiny bit, adding some extra things because it wasn't entirely finished. And that is mainly it. Also, I always have different soundtracks for whenever I'm actually recording this, which is, I suppose, a little funny fact to actually throw out there. I feel like I can't commentate to the full, like, comfortable extent without actually playing some music in the background. It's not like I can't present anything without music in the background, it's just that when I'm talking to myself, to a microphone, to just a screen in front of me where some things are happening, I just want to have a soundtrack. And I'm beginning to get a bit of an hypothesis that these soundtracks actually influence the way that I do my commentaries, which might also be in the state of mind that I am in at the moment. But at the moment, I'm listening to The Thieving Magpie from Clockwork Orange, and it is horror show. So maybe I'll see that back in a commentary. In any case, it is mainly foliage work in this episode, which is really for a couple of reasons. I usually like to do, and this is something that I really cannot stress enough, no matter what sort of way you want to build your park, be sure to do it in a way that you're comfortable with, and always build things that you feel like building. And this does not count just for the things that you build, but also the order that you build it in. For an example, I sometimes... Oh, damn it, that was the word, In any case, sometimes I really feel like I have a day where I just want to do foliage. I don't really feel like doing buildings as much, or paths, and really just have that sort of day where foliage work is something that I'm most interested in. And I would say just go for whatever works best for the sort of mood that you are in at that point. Which is also why this turned into a bit of a foliage episode, since I want to do that. Also, on a side note, this is supposed to be a transfer track. What I do have to add about that is that I do not have much prior knowledge about the way that transfer tracks are supposed to work. And I probably done goofed in how this transfer track is actually looking over here. I don't think it's too much of a very realistic transfer track. And the thing is, I've been looking at real transfer tracks but couldn't really figure out what I should do. So I don't want to force anybody to comment, but I do think it would be a very nice sort of theme that if you do leave any sort of suggestions, because this is really something where I feel like I do not have certain expertise or knowledge that I should really have in order to make a transfer track that the way that I might really want to do it. If I want to go for a realistic transfer track, then by all means leave a comment saying, no, Silverette, what you are doing over here is just complete and utter garbage. If you are going to make a transfer track in Rollercoaster Tycoon 3, you should do it this way with these custom scenery sets. So at the moment, damn it, I said it again. But at the moment, I feel like this transfer track is decent. It looks like it could be a functional transfer track, sort of from a distance, but really, when you get close to it, it is just a bunch of steel plates. Then again, the question is whether it actually matters. I don't know if people are too interested in actually getting transfer tracks to be completely realistic. So that's a bit of a point that I'll leave up to comments. I can't really tell, and this is something that goes for all of the criticism or feedback or suggestions that I get. I can't say that I will follow all the suggestions. I can't promise that I'll try them all or can get them all in my park, but overall, I do have to say that getting feedback and others sharing their knowledge about certain things that I try to build is always very helpful. So if you do have any ideas whatsoever about the transfer track, then by all means, you can share them and I might listen to them and actually figure out, oh wait, that is actually how I should do it. So that was that part. Then there was the bit that I wanted to do this staircase on the backside. This is, by the way, going to be the queue. I just didn't want to do the rest of the queue because I didn't have too much of an idea yet as to what I wanted to do with the queue itself, not to mention that I'm not too great at queues, but that is definitely something that I will not only build in the next episode, but also talk about in the next episode. So really the main sort of thing that gets done in this episode is the transfer track, which is a bit iffy, and some very basic foliage, which is as always, and I also can't stress this enough, it's going to be very simple foliage, and it is quite a formulaic approach, which you may notice if you watch very many of my foliage videos, that I often do things in very similar ways, is that most of the groundwork is done by the beach grass set, which is known as the beach grass set, but it's actually PB&J's beach fence. I actually got many comments about this. This grass right here is PB&J's beach fence. It is called beach fence, but it has grass in it, and the grass is amazing and nobody uses the beach fence. So that's basically about that set. But one thing that I do really have to say about that set is that I see many people use this as ground foliage, and I would opt against this, which might seem very contradictory, seeing that I use it quite often in many of the things that I build. But a very important thing to understand about the way that this set usually works in coasters and parks that people build is that in its most common use, the beach fence grass is actually used as a foliage blender. So you don't use it as foliage on its own, you use it to kind of get your very low shrubs and your very shrubless areas and kind of connect them together by just having some very, very subtle grass here and there, just to make the overall thing look a tiny bit better. But you don't use it actually as ground foliage or any sort of other foliage that should really cover the area. So that's one thing that I really want to make clear. Don't use beach grass set on its own. Just get it to blend and mix it with other foliage, but on its own it won't work as well. Another thing is that the tree lines, which you just saw happen, is right here. It's happening as well when I usually get Old Spice's trees, because they are quite low poly and also have a very good texture. You lower them onto the ground, which makes sure that if you place a really big row of trees like that, you can't see behind those trees. So you can't see the endless plains of Rollercoaster Tycoon 3 sandbox, which is what I don't want people to see because it's very immersion breaking. And why I do this is because it's easy, and that makes sense. It saves a lot of time, but it also saves polys and it saves your computer. You don't want to fill fields of your park map with foliage. It will absolutely destroy your computer, so watch out for that. But also be sure that if you use this technique of making a large tree line using very similar trees, that you make sure that you have a row in front of it with more detailed foliage that kind of disguises the very simplistic formulaic tree line which blocks off the view of the endless plains of Rollercoaster Tycoon 3, and make it a tiny bit nicer with some more fancy and detailed foliage. At least that's how I usually do it. There's more about that in my foliage tutorial, but this I think would be a very good example of how it really works when I time-lapse it, and you can really kind of see it happening, that I add the tree line and then afterwards add the details around that. I can't really add I think that is by far the best way to do it. If you already have some foliage, you can add a tree line behind it to make sure that you don't see the endless plains, but usually I go for the ordered tree line first because it also gives you a very nice template of where you are going to have your foliage. So that's basically why I kind of do it like that. And the rest of this is basically going to be a tiny bit of a flower bed over here. Just wanted to fill the area in front of this train station a tiny bit and make it look a tiny bit nicer. So that's what's going down over here. The only thing that I am not too sure about in this area is something that has been mentioned before, is the fact that these are two train stations in very close proximity, and it does look a bit weird. So I might want to look at that in the future, but for the moment I think it does look alright, as weird as it is to have two train stations this close to each other. In any case, I'm running out of time, and it is about time to end this episode, so thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on the next episode.